gift from the Saudis, a luxury jet, for lack of a better term. So, yeah, I was on the Pierce Morgan show this morning. We taped it. And the discussion was about, of course, this despicable woman who called a 5-year-old child the N-word. And I made the argument that anybody who has donated to her is despicable. What does Jack Posobiec do? He uses whataboutism, and he talks about Carmelo Anthony, the young man who stabbed and sadly killed a classmate. We don't know whether he's guilty or not. We know he's been charged, but we don't know if he's guilty or not. And his Jack Posobiec says to me on Pierce this morning, what about that? How do you feel about the people donating there? I said, first of all, that's whataboutism, and one has nothing to do with the other. And second of all, we don't even know if he committed a crime. He was charged with a crime. If he's convicted and people support him after that, I have a problem with that. But what if he's found not guilty? So that's how I feel about that. And then Jack Posobiec called me a liberal. That's the go-to for MAGA Republicans. Now, obviously, it's not true. I'm a registered independent who's anti-Donald Trump, and I started to lean to the left on social issues, but I corrected the record for him, and it made him look like a fool. And then the topic came up about Kanye West being censored on Spotify, which, by the way, I agree with. You know, anybody who has songs and lyrics that have Heil Hitler in it and blatantly anti-Semitic rhetoric, I think it's great what Spotify is doing. Now, of course, Jack Posobiec, again, a page from the MAGA right defending Kanye West. And, of course, I disagreed with him on that. And then there was a point where Brandon said I had Trump derangement syndrome. Now, Brandon Tatum is the male version of Candace Owens. He said I have Trump derangement syndrome. That's when I said he had TFS, Trump fellatio syndrome, and he lost his you-know-what. They lost it when I said that. So wait, I have Trump derangement syndrome, and I'm a liberal. Those are the two go-tos for MAGA morons who don't have an argument. And then they said I was exposed. How so? How was I exposed? You guys have two arguments from anybody who disagrees with you. You're either a liberal, a lefty lunatic, as Trump would say, or you have Trump derangement syndrome. That was their argument on the Pierce Morgan show. I think they look completely pathetic, and I look forward to playing some audio cuts from the show for you, but it's not going to air until tomorrow on his show, so I probably won't be playing the clips until Wednesday, but we will definitely do that. I'm looking forward to that. John Fogelsang's also going to be joining us on the show tomorrow. I'm certainly looking forward to talking to John, and we have some more special guests throughout the remainder of the week, and I'll update you on that a little bit later in the show. But I want to get to the biggest news, certainly the biggest news of the day in the last 24 hours, and that is Donald Trump appears to be receiving a gift from the Saudis, from Qatar. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, $400 million luxury jet in the air. And this comes just after he announced that he's building a $5.5 billion golf resort in Qatar. And now they announced that they're just giving him this $400 million private jet. The American presidency, ladies and gentlemen, as far as we know it, is absolutely for sale to the highest bidder. And Trump, according to him, very public and transparent transaction on the jet grift only came to light after confidential sources told ABC about it. So they were not open about it. I mean, this is the most blatant example, at least in my opinion, of bribery in modern presidential history. Can you recall anything else worse than this? I certainly can't. And explain to me how Bob Menendez, who I don't defend, by the way, got 11 years in prison for accepting gold bars from Egypt, which, again, I don't condone and I don't feel bad for him. Why can't Trump get 11 years in jail for accepting a Boeing jumbo jet from Qatar? Could somebody please explain that to me? Well, this was Donald Trump today trying to explain it to the American people. And it's very interesting because, again, he's saying it's a brilliant thing because who wouldn't accept a free plane? Listen to this.
And it's going to be a while before we get them. And I think Qatar, who has really, we've helped them a lot over the years in terms of security and safety. I think they, and very, very nicely, and I have a lot of respect for the leadership and for the leader, Qatar. And I think they knew about it because they buy Boeings. They buy a lot of Boeings. And they knew about it. And they said, we would like to do something. And if we can get a 747 as a contribution to our Defense Department to use during a couple of years while they're building the other ones. I think that was a very nice gesture. Now, I could be a stupid person and say, oh, no, we don't want a free plane. We give free things out. We'll take one, too. And it helps us out because, again, we're talking about we have 40-year-old aircraft. The money we spend, the maintenance we spend on those planes to keep them tippy-top is astronomical. You wouldn't even believe it. So I think it's a great gesture from Qatar. I appreciate it very much. I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane. But I thought it was a great gesture. And I think it was a gesture because of the fact that we have helped and continue to, we will continue to, all of those countries, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and others, we keep them safe. If it wasn't for us, they probably wouldn't exist right now. And I think this was just a gesture of good faith.
So Donald Trump is willing to risk national security because he doesn't like the interior of Air Force One. That's really what's going on here. Does anybody believe that they would just hand over a $400 million jumbo jet and they don't expect anything in return? It's the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my life that people would actually believe that. And then a reporter asked him, do you plan on keeping this after you leave office? Now, obviously, I believe that. Listen to Donald Trump's response to it.
I think this was just a gesture of good faith. And I don't get it. Someday it'll be like Ronald Reagan. They decommission them. They get to a certain age, they decommission them. It'll go to my library. They're talking about going to my library in years out. But I thought it was a great gesture. And it's something that was done by Ronald Reagan. They actually decommissioned the plane, and he put it in his library. And it actually has made the library, I think, a Boeing 707. It's actually made the library more successful. So it was good.
Do you plan to use the plane after you leave office?
No, I don't. No, it would go directly to the library after I leave office. I wouldn't be using it. No.
Does anybody believe him? Is there anybody out there that believes that Donald Trump would just give up anything, let alone a $400 million jumbo jet that was a gift from the Saudi government? Is there anybody that believes him? I'll tell you, I'm the first person to say, no, I don't believe him. I don't think he's giving it up at all. And then comes Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who says Mr. Operation Warp Speed can't be bought when, ladies and gentlemen, literally, as we speak, he's being bought to the highest bidder. Keep in mind that Donald Trump has business deals with over 20 foreign entities across the world. But yet we're led to believe that the presidency can't be bought. Listen to what Brainworm had to say about this.
Who is a man of his word, who has the courage. President Trump was taking money from the pharmaceutical industry, too. I think they gave you $100 million. Yeah. But he can't be bought.
Bought, really? He can't? He just was. And then Brainworm goes on and starts talking about how President Trump stands up to oligarchies. I'm laughing at this because it's so ridiculous. He literally just accepted a $400 million jumbo jet from an oligarchy. And RFK Jr. has the gall in the same press conference earlier today to say there's nobody that's more than willing to stand up to oligarchies than Donald Trump. Listen to this.
And he is standing here for the American people. I don't know what, there's writers like Lord Elizabeth Warren or Robert Reich who are saying that President Trump is on this side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump.
Nothing says standing up to oligarchs more than accepting a $400 million private airplane. You frickin' imbecile, you brainworm fool, you nut job. Go back to beheading your whales and staging bear murders in Central Park, you idiot. Is there any reasonable person out there with an IQ over 20 that thinks that this does not harm our national security? Is there any reasonable person out there that doesn't think this is a you scratch my back, I scratch yours, and he's been bought? Again, as I mentioned earlier, $5.5 billion golf resort in Qatar he just announced he was building. And then do you remember when those 4 American soldiers who lost their lives, who paid the ultimate price, were sent home and they were honored, and Donald Trump skipped on that so he could hang out with the Saudis at his live golf tournament where he was being paid for, where they rented out his Doral golf course in Florida? Do you remember that? Oh, yeah, this was in the works, ladies and gentlemen, because this is what he really cared about. He wanted a better interior for Air Force One, so he'll just accept a $400 million luxury jet. This is ridiculous. And let's be honest about this. This is blatant, it is naked, and it is absolutely what we thought it would be, corruption. This is naked corruption at its finest. I know you don't want me to put the word naked and Donald Trump together in the same sentence. I apologize, but I had to there. This is naked corruption at its finest. So in this press conference today, they didn't just talk about this $400 million gift where the president was bought. But Donald Trump also went into a diatribe about Obamacare, calling it a failure again. Remember, he's been in 9 years, he's had the opportunity to come up with some sort of replacement plan. Listen to what Donald Trump said about Obamacare and the lies that he spewed about it.
Never had a president that had the courage to do this. And nobody knew the system like I do. I mean, I've gotten to know this system so well. And I don't think it's fair that it benefits Obamacare. Obamacare is a failure. It's not a good health care. It works. I made it work. I had an obligation to make it work. Or an obligation to let it die. I chose that we had to make it work. I had to make it as good as possible. And I had a choice. I could have let it fail or make it as good as possible. As good as possible means it was still not very good, but it survived.
What is he talking about? He made Obamacare better? First of all, let's be real on this. Donald Trump tried to kill Obamacare, and it was John McCain, yes, the hero, John McCain, who saved it. What is Donald Trump talking about? I saved Obamacare? You've been bitching about it for 9 years, and where's the replacement plan? Where it is? Where is it? Where did it go? Here he goes trying to come up with the explanation for a replacement plan for Obamacare. And listen to the end of this statement because it's so absurd. The Republicans, they need to come up with a replacement plan. They need to come up with it. Donald Trump was the guy for years that has been saying, we have a replacement plan. It's coming in 2 weeks. It's coming in a month. It's coming in 2 months. Last I checked, he was president for 4 years. Listen to this orange orangutan imbecile try to explain to the American people, oh, well, we're working on it. We got to get the Republicans to replace it.
So we're going to maybe come up with something. I think this gives the Republicans a chance to actually do a health care that's much better than Obamacare and for less money, which if you guys would work on that.
If you guys would work on that, did he really just say that? You're the guy who said you had the replacement plan when you were president the first go around. Oh, we'll have it in 2 weeks. We'll have it in a month. If you guys will please work on that. What the F have you been doing for 9 years? You were already the president. Where was your replacement plan, you idiot? Oh, and don't even get me started with pharmaceutical prices. So Donald Trump is making the case that his new executive order is going to lower the price of prescription drugs, maybe even up to 90%, which is obviously idiotic. Let me give you guys a little bit of background on what Donald Trump is doing here, if you haven't already noticed with this executive order. It's not about making drug prices cheaper for the Americans. It's about making it more expensive in countries in Europe so his pharmaceutical friends could make larger profits. That's exactly what this executive order is all about. This isn't about America first. It's not about lowering the price of drugs at pharmaceuticals. That's exactly not what it is in America. This will raise the prices in Europe. In essence, the pharmaceutical companies will be making a larger profit and more money. It's not helping the American people. A perfect example is the executive order that he signed on day one, where under Joe Biden, insulin was capped at $35 for Plan B and Plan D for those on their plans, on their health care plans. But Donald Trump's initial plan on capping insulin left millions of Americans unable to do so. Joe Biden's plan, you could look this up if you don't believe me, under Plan B and Plan D, millions of more Americans had the opportunity to get insulin capped at $35. And then Donald Trump signs the executive order, which millions of Americans now are not getting their insulin capped. That's Donald Trump. He wants his pharmaceuticals friends to be making more money. That's exactly what this executive order is about today. It's about countries in Europe where pharmaceutical drugs will be more expensive, more profits for the pharmaceutical companies. No, prices are not going to be dropping in America. In fact, if you look right now, prices are higher because of this executive order. It is absurd. It is ridiculous. And listen to the bumbling and mumbling adjudicated rapist and 34-count felon, serial liar talk about it.
To do that. So for the first time in many years, we'll slash the cost of prescription drugs, and we will bring fairness to America. Drug prices will come down by much more, really, if you think 59. If you think of a drug that is sometimes 10 times more expensive, it's much more than the 59%. You know, it depends on the way you want to analyze it, but in one way you could analyze it that way. But between 59 and 80, and I guess even 90%. So when I worked so hard in the first term, and if I got prices down, I remember I was the only one to ever get prices down for a full year, but I'd get them down like 2%, and I thought it was like a big deal. Well, we're getting them down 60, 70, 80, 90%, but actually more than that if you think about it in the way mathematically. And Palmer has
At 90%, right? Just like eggs are down 93%, right? They're 22 cents for a dozen of eggs. This guy is such a mumbling and bumbling idiot. And the fact that these people still support him makes them idiots as well. It's so stupid. It's so ridiculous. Then comes the topic of Stephen Miller, who wears the Donald Trump knee pads 24/7. And the bottom line here is it doesn't matter what you ask Stephen Miller or somebody in Donald Trump's administration, like, for example, Pam Bondi. You're the very, very, very best president we've ever had in the first 100 days, Mr. President. You're the best. You're Superman. So here's Stephen Miller's best example of performing fellatio on Donald Trump live on Fox News. Have a listen to this.
Great to see you. Something tells me
Thank
you
my
were
friend.
not rattled on the negative, some of the negative coverage on 100 days.
Well, quite the opposite. The president's first 100 days were the most successful, impactful, extraordinary first 100 days that we've seen in modern presidential history.
So Stephen Miller, again, performing fellatio verbally on Donald Trump on Fox News. Best, most impactful. Well, he's right. It was very impactful in a negative way in the first 100 days. The economy has gone down the crapper. People have lost their 401ks. Stocks have plummeted. Inflation is not way down. Gas prices are not way down. People have lost the right to due process in this country. He's broken law multiple times. He's not giving people due process. He's broken our Constitution multiple times. Every person in the Constitution says has the right to due process. Doesn't say documented or undocumented immigrant. There is no rule of law. Very impactful when he decided to pardon a bunch of January 6th insurrectionists, and some of whom beat police officers. Well, I agree with Stephen Miller. That's very impactful. It makes this country more dangerous to live in. And you're sending a message, as long as you fight for me, and as long as you defend me by assaulting police officers, I got your back. Very impactful when he invites Enrique Tarrio for dinner. Very impactful when he caves on the tariffs with China. That's a whole nother story. See, that's what Donald Trump does. He comes up with a horrible idea, and then when it screws things up, in this case our economy, he caves, and then he sees it as some sort of victory, or he says it's a victory so his cult followers believe it. Hence China. He, tariffs them 140%, then he caves, claims that he's been talking to President Xi when President Xi wants nothing to do with him. They tariff us back, and then Trump is the one that caves first and lowers the tariffs, and then China lowers the tariffs. And then Donald Trump claims that it's some sort of victory when it's not. We suffer for it, China suffers for it, and Donald Trump claims that, he won some sort of medal. He should get the Nobel Peace Prize. It's ridiculous, and it's disgusting.